I'm very grateful to the organisers for inviting me to attend my first IBUS meeting and talk about some of the healthcare inequities work that we've been undertaking in North East London. So, let's try and get the slides to work. Prostate cancer, as you know, is a major problem, and the number of cases that we're likely to see over the next decade or so is going to double, so it's going to become a big problem for all of us. And prostate cancer disproportionately affects black men, as you know, 1 in 4 lifetime risk as compared with 1 in 8. And the other risk factors are inherited variants in BRCA2, so this is a high-risk inherited variant gene abnormality that affects between 2 and 5% of cases. And of course, family history is very important, with a twofold increased risk amongst patients who have family members who have patients who've had prostate cancer. Of course, the heritability of prostate cancer is determined by the cumulative impact of a number of different low-risk genetic variants, and that's basically spelling errors within individual genes that are passed on from generation to generation. It's the impact of these low-risk variants that contributes to the majority of the inherited prostate cancers. As we know, most deaths from prostate cancer occur due to a late diagnosis, as early-stage disease is curable. But screening based on PSH, hugely controversial based on the evidence that we have so far. However, as you know, in the popular press, there's been a lot of interest in the implementation of a screening program for at-risk individuals and possibly the entire population. So, of course, some of this will be answered by the Transform trial, which is due to open later this year, which will test a number of different screening modalities, incorporating MRI and PSA, followed by targeted biopsies, and that trial is led by the individuals at the bottom of the slide here. But I wanted to highlight one of the arms, Arm 4, which incorporates polygenic risk scores, and that's looking for these genetic variants and calculating patients who are at risk based on their PRS profile. So this paper came out about 3 weeks ago. This is the Barcode 1 study that's been published in the New England Journal of Medicine by the Royal Marsden and the ICR, led by Ros Eels. And this study looked at PRS in prostate cancer screening. And Barcode 1 used a PRS from 130 European ancestry SNPs. So these are these spelling errors that we identify within genes to identify high-risk individuals amongst a population of European ancestry men. So over 6,000 men were screened, of which 745 were invited to come forward for prostate biopsy based on their PRS score, and 468 had a biopsy, of which 187 of those had cancer identified, within which 55% were clinically significant. And of course, that highlights that PRS is identifying still a number of clinically insignificant cancers. However, of those clinically significant cancers, the group identified that about 71% of these would be missed on standard UK diagnostics. And within Barcode 1, there was a bias towards professional occupations, but there was no information on the impact of PRS on non-European ancestry populations. So there was no black men, there was no Asians, and other ethnic groups within the trial. So we've been exploiting a cohort in northeast London, and this is a community-based longitudinal study of British Bangladeshi and British Pakistani individuals, where genotyping has been undertaken on 100,000 individuals who have been followed up for several years and identified a number of different diseases. And by linking the disease phenotype back to the genetics, we can understand some of the risk factors within the genetics of these populations that cause or are contributing to that particular disease. So the DNA is extracted based on a saliva test and genotyped on an Illumina platform. And we identified almost 120 patients within this cohort who had a prostate cancer diagnosis based on SNOMED and ICD codes, and of which we undertook a subgroup analysis of 99 patients with linked genotyping data and also age-matched non-cancer controls. So what we then did was to undertake a validation study using 451 multi-ancestry SNPs. So these are from different ancestries, including the Afro-Caribbean and African populations, Black African populations and Asian populations as well. And these were identified in a number of previous other studies which have been put together in a meta-analysis. So this is what we found. We found that almost 200 of the 451 SNPs were associated with prostate cancer risk amongst this South Asian cohort. 21 of those SNPs had a statistically significant association with prostate cancer risk, with 6 of those with a higher proportion of an association. And at the bottom left here, you can see the distribution of the PRS scores calculated for the controls and also the cases. And you can see of these two plots on the right, the PRS score is higher in the cases than it was in the controls, and that was statistically significant. On the right, the table shows PRS categories, so we've done quartile stratification, and those who had were in the higher quartile had a higher